monthly.
Yeah, we got part B here.
What? Sorry, before I leave.
Yeah, this is the Housing Committee. Finish with part B.
Sorry, part B.
Do we need to, I mean, it's the report as a whole. Okay.
Oh, sorry, so it's
Yeah.
just the report
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
whole. So
okay.
Glenn Livingston seconded, Pauline Cotter, that the report as a whole be adopted. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye, those opposed say no. Carried. Thank you. Now the Community Committee. Part A decision, facilities rebuild programme, monthly update, that the committee recommendation is the same as the staff recommendation, that the Community Committee receive the information in this report. Would Mr Johansson like to move that?
Yeah, thank you. Happy to move it.
Who will second it? Andrew Turner. Mr Johansson?
You'll see that there was just one point that the committee asked, and I've actually just asked staff, I'm not sure if they're coming down, just to talk through to our city and the provincial building on the way.
We can give you some update on that if
So
you wish that.
what the committee was really clear, knowing that this is a real, these two are priorities for elected members to consider, and in the report, really it says they're waiting for strategic direction from council. We thought it was really important that we get clear timeframes and an understanding from staff as to when decisions are going to be made on these facilities. So we haven't had that information back, but I think if we've got staff here, we might as well take the opportunity for them just to give a very quick view from their point of view. Is that okay?
Great.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, Mike Hanaway, Unit Manager of the Major Facilities Rebuild Unit. It's, I guess with great pleasure that the Canterbury Provincial Chambers and our city projects recognised as fairly significant heritage buildings and important assets for the city and high risk, I guess, have been transferred into my unit. I've recruited a project director, he's sitting over there, Phil Crew, who's a specialist project director in heritage space to look after these projects. So that's where we're at. So we're kind of in a bit of a transition phase as the projects move into my program. So what's happened on Canterbury Provincial Chambers to date is simply stabilisation and weather tightness and settling it. So making sure that they're closing the building out and it's preserved and looked after for going ahead. At the same time, like all of the assets in the city, we're working through our insurance claim on that project, getting very close to, I guess, an agreement or an establishment that will have reached its full insurance limit and will be able to set that insurance aside. Hopefully that'll be a part of that process. So really done the prep and establishing the safety. We're now going into the phase of actually very carefully looking at saying what is the full scope of work to do for the project. There's a whole range of choices likely to be in terms of both timing, which order we do it, being very cognizant, I guess, of trying to get the building open as we can, if we could, on the way through, recognising the significant heritage value of it. So really we're taking a deep breath and looking and doing a very detailed planning exercise to look at their options and costs. That could take a few months. I would think it would be towards the mid to later part of this year that we would be able to come back and say, here are all the options in terms of timing, budget and scope. And our city is in a very similar phase where pretty much the same exercise being applied to that building.
Except that our city's a little bit smaller than the Canterbury Provincial Council Chamber.
Yes.
I've read the latest report on it because I have a particular interest in that building and that its potential for collapse related to the staircase is, and so the 15-metre berth that has to be granted includes the National Memorial to Women's Suffrage. And that is a site which is particularly special to women and visitors to our city. And a particular date that is relevant to them is the 19th of September. So I personally would like to see what efforts could be put in place to ensure that we have a solution so that the National Memorial to women's suffrage can be available, permanently available on that site by the 19th of September this year. And it seems to me that there must be a strategy that would enable that to be done. I understand that the demolition of the stairway is part and parcel of that, but that seems to me to be the only reason that you've got the 15-metre, perimeter fencing.
I don't have the detail to be able to answer that question, but what I do know is that we have engaged the engineers and we're looking very seriously at trying to achieve exactly what you've asked for.
Well, I mean, could we have an earlier report
Yes.
on that? I know Vicky's going to have some questions about Canterbury Provincial Council Chamber, but I'm just wondering on a reasonable time frame for that, because it would be really good. I mean, next week is International Women's Week and International Women's Day on the 8th of March, and we had hoped that there could have been something available on that day, but people don't want to go in and clean up the site as a community exercise only to have it locked away again for an unspecified time. So that the women of Christchurch really want to come together and restore the surrounding area to the beauty it once contained, so that it can be available on a permanent basis. So when would be a reasonable time for you to report back on a strategy that would at least enable that to occur?
I'm looking to Phil, who's been peripherally involved in that. But look, it shouldn't be far away, I would.
We'll advise you sometime within the next week as to when it's coming back.
Okay, so Jane can report on it.
Jane can report in her CEO's report.
In her next report.
We'll tell you when
Okay,
it's coming.
thank you. Vicky?
Just a couple of questions. Is there any requirement on the Our City building to use it in the way it was previously used, or is that now open for discussion again?
I'm not aware of any requirement to use it in this way, but that would be part of our planning exercise would be exactly that. I mean, the best thing about heritage buildings is that they have a good sustainable use.
And secondly, just in terms, I've seen the insurance estimates for both the Provincial Council Chamber and the Our City. Some of them don't seem to be too far apart, but in terms of the total amount that's going to be required to be spent on them, is it possible, before we spend all of the betterment fund, to have an approximate idea of what it will cost on top of any insurance payment to fix Our City and the Provincial Council Chambers, sort of like quite soon before it all goes on other buildings?
We can come back to you quickly with our best estimates before having completed our full scope.
I think there's an appetite to set money aside for that purpose. Any other questions on this? Right, thank you very much. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. The facilities rebuild plan demolition of Littleton Service Centre. Who have we got? Oh, same people. And the recommendation that we have here is the committee recommendation, which is to approve the demolition and then request a number of things and direct staff around that future consulting with the community board. Yanni, would you like to move that?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Seconded by Andrew Turner.
Yeah, I know that this was, there were concerns about making sure that our insurance is at a satisfactory level. I think one of the important points to note is that we need to get clarification around the basis of the insurance settlement, and does this include the automatic reinstatement? So as we assess buildings, are we automatically putting in claims for automatic reinstatement?
Got Adrian?
No.
Darren Moses, Facilities Rebuild Manager, Capital Program Group. No, I don't have an answer here at the moment, and probably aware this is one of a number of ongoing issues of investigation in the Facilities Rebuild Program. We don't appear to have anybody representing insurance in the room today, so I can't offer up an answer, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but I think, we're asking for council to get this clarification. It's a pretty important principle for most of our agreements with our buildings, and that is if we have automatic reinstatement after each event, the damage that is done should be recovered through our insurer, rather than just one payment for the different things that have happened. So the automatic reinstatement is pretty fundamental, because you're possibly gaining more of what you're properly entitled to than you're otherwise getting if you're just doing it on basis of one event. So this is important to get clarification. I think if staff could just note that this is important, then I'm happy to support the recommendations that are in here. This is a facility that is a bit of an eyesore in Littleton, I think, to put it kindly, and I'll certainly defer to the councillor for the ward. He may wish to make other comments. Generally, as a principle, I don't like for us to be demolishing things without having the alternative and the plans for what's replacing it. But in this case, I think it's really important that we do move forward.
Andrew Turner.
Yes, certainly I would support Councillor Johansson's comments around the insurance. From the community's point of view, this is the last damaged building on London Street needing to be demolished. All of the privately owned buildings have in fact been dealt with. This is the last building on London Street, Littleton's main street, requiring demolition. And I know the community will be pleased to know that that work is about to be underway. Just a couple of other comments I'd like to make, and things really perhaps just to give staff a heads up on. Within the building, there are some artefacts and some items of cultural significance that will ideally need to be recovered as part of the demolition process or prior to demolition. So certainly when negotiating with demolition contractors, if I can request that you take the need to remove, as I say, some cultural artefacts from the building. And there are also, as I understand, some property records in there that date back to the Littleton Borough Council, which would be something that we'd want to keep as well. And then referring to clause 7.3, this is around the arrangements for a new facility, or in particular a combined facility. There was quite a lot of community consultation done around this as the part of the work done on the Littleton Master Plan, which would be the most recent piece of community consultation done around earthquake recovery in Littleton. I would just draw staff's attention to the number of staff that we have currently working in the temporary facility in Littleton. Democracy Services staff, Strengthening Community staff, Parks and Reserves staff, customer service staff, all of whom are closely linked with the Littleton community, and all of whom are people that the Littleton community loves been there. So we certainly would want to see a new facility that allowed for all of those people to continue working in Littleton. And I guess, Littleton's a place where there's a strong community, and we would have aspirations around what you might call a little city hall for Littleton. Littleton could be a good example of somewhere that we could progress that kind of idea. So really just to request that staff think of future staff accommodation needs in Littleton, and I'm sure the community board will have some comment on this when you go back to them as well. Thank you.
I just had a couple of questions. One is that in demolishing the facility, are we sure that we've got all of the information that we need in order to sustain the insurance claim, given that there isn't agreement on it?
This was a stroke of good luck in coming to the community committee at the 11th hour. The insurers conceded that it was a total economic loss, supported by a statement of position which claimed total sum insured plus a 10% margin. So we have that now in writing, and that's the best thing we can possibly have to proceed with absolute confidence to demolish this facility.
Okay. And the second question is that I couldn't tell from the report whether the Littleton Library is in existence or whether it's being rebuilt and this is added to it, or this is this is added to an existing building?
So the library's adjacent to the community centre.
Yeah.
The library's currently open and the service centre activity happens out of the library. No problems there whatsoever, and the Littleton master plan directs that in fact a combined Littleton library and service centre redevelopment. So once we've got the dilapidated building at the service centre demolished, we'll be looking at future options for amalgamating into that library area.
So expanding on the existing
Quite
site?
possibly, yep.
But you're not talking about demolishing the library and
No,
rebuilding
not
a
at all.
whole new centre? Okay. But it does again raise us with an issue of a major shortfall between what we're insured for and what it's going to cost to rebuild.
Again, that's why it's really critical that when we do work through the insurance as to what policy interpretation we actually have. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to make up the shortfall. All right, so I mean, I'll just say this. I just think that this is incredibly challenging for us to do this building by building, place by place, without any overarching picture. It really is, and it's not a process that I find easy at all. I understand communities' expectations, 3 years down the track, but we're faced with an extremely challenging financial situation, and I don't sense a joined-up approach. Anyway, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And with a similar heavy heart, I move to the demolition of the Heathcote Voluntary Library building and the recommendations around that.
Can I just say for these three, the Heathcote ones were referred to the community board for feedback. There's been a major community event in Heathcote over the weekend. I know that the board has been actively talking through with its community over the Heathcote one. So my suggestion is that this is basically when the community board reports back in 2 weeks' time to council, that as part of that report back, we consider these reports so that we can hear directly from them.
All right.
So that's for these three Heathcote reports. I know that they have provided some feedback already, but yeah.
Okay. So the motion is just simply that the
Defer items 9.3, 9.4 and 9.5
We-
to the 13th of March.
okay, so that we defer items. What is it?
9.3, 9.4 and 9.5.
Okay. To 9.5 to the March the 13th meeting. All right. So I just rule on that. We don't need a motion to that effect. No. But can I say, in bringing that back, in terms of the paper itself, the financial implications paragraph is not good enough. It should be able to stand alone. So in the whole of the report, we talk about the difference between the sum insured, etc. But the financial implications only refer to the net results. And I think if we look, a financial implications section should stand alone. You should be able to look at it and see exactly what the financial implications of the decision that you're making are. Thank you. So that's all of those.
Who can give advice on the reinstatement question from the Littleton.
Oh, okay.
If
Yes, no, that would be useful. Thank you.
Okay. Our policy does not provide for automatic reinstatement, and advice was given to the Corporate and Financial Committee in September to that effect, so that if the building is destroyed, we can recover the full amount. If we had started to repair it and spent some work on it between one event and the other, we can recover that. But we can only ever recover if we've done no work between the first and the second, and the building is subsequently destroyed in the second. We can only claim it once, as I'm sure you would appreciate.
I just want to be clear because, you know, in terms of the basis of preparing our claims, I know that automatic reinstatement, it's, you know, there's different views about whether we had it or not.
No, there's
No,
one view,
it's the
and we
term
don't
of the
have it.
policy. I'm hearing Diane saying that our policy didn't contain it.
That's right. Our policy does not provide
Not every
for
policy
automatic
does.
reinstatement.
Right.
And I
Did
would
it-
refer you, I brought a copy down for you,
Right.
but I would refer you to the advice given on the 6th of September 2013 at the Corporate and Finance meeting,
Okay. Which says,
that it does not provide for automatic reinstatement. This advice gives, and I'm happy to circulate it,
Yeah.
gives 3 worked examples, which is incredibly helpful, and perhaps we could just distribute it to the council afterwards.
I think that would be very useful. Thank you.
okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. So now we've got the library's 2025 facilities plan update. Would you like to move that?
I'm happy to move the committee recommendations.
And the who would like to second that? Phil Clearwater. Yanni, did you want to speak to it?
Yeah, just very briefly, I appreciate that staff have provided this updated revised version, but we did find it a little bit hard to just go through and see what changes we were doing, and thought that there needed to be a bit more work around putting it into a very clear, presentable format so that people could see really clearly what changes we were making. We also thought it was really important that we talk to our local community boards. So this is just a procedural thing to get a bit clearer picture of where we're going with our libraries, to seek some community feedback before we consider it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no, I think that's very useful. Any other comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. And now Yanni Johansson moved, and Paul Lonsdale would like to second that the report as a whole be adopted. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. Carried. Thank you. Now we move on to the report of the Earthquake Recovery Committee of the